Alienation, rage, isolation, humiliation, shame, all of these things inside of a human being are a dangerous bomb waiting to go off. And that bomb is created by how we show up or don't show up in someone's lives. That bomb is created by how people create hurt in the lives of a human being who is suffering at some level and doesn't have the ability to speak it. They will find a way to communicate what their difficulty is. But if you don't understand that what you see is them expressing their pain, then it's going to get magnified way worse than it is. It seems like every day we turn on the news and there's some sort of horrific mass shooting. Why did this person go and harm all these people? What did this person go through? What is this person working with inside of themselves that's causing them to want to go hurt people in such a terrible way? I think that it's important to look into, because if you don't understand the why, you'll never be able to solve the problem. Now, I realize that talking about this topic can really trigger a lot of anger and grief that people feel. Maybe you're the parent of a child who was murdered, or maybe you're a parent of a child who was terrorized and whose life was spared. I feel so much sympathy for you and what you must be going through. I really want to be sensitive to the families that are experiencing grief from such catastrophic loss. I don't want to make it seem that I'm sympathizing with the people who have harmed your children. Instead, I'm trying to bring to light the feelings and the experience inside of a person that can cause that suffering to spill out all over others. Now, I want to caution you, if you are not strong enough to have this level of discourse empathically yet, that's okay. Turn off this video. This may not be the step you're ready for yet, and that's all right. If you are a parent who's lost a child to a terrible tragedy like this, please check out the video above that I have created for you specifically to know how to heal and find the pathway towards inner peace and closure that you desire and most desperately need to begin to resume a life that feels wonderful again. But for those who are ready to understand what goes on inside of a human being that can cause them to hurt and harm and fantasize about hurting and harming others, let's sit and have this discussion so you can understand how pain is transferred through the human realm. None of us want to be afraid to take a walk, afraid to send our children to school, afraid to go enjoy a wonderful experience with our friends, family, churches. But we are all in danger when we have human beings who are suffering so terribly and don't know what to do with that suffering. Our society only offers us one story about a mass shooter. They're a monster. And as long as we label people monsters, it's almost as if we stop inquiring about who they are and their humanity and how they got here. Typically, in the case of someone who goes and does a mass shooting, what we see is someone who was hurting for a very long time and someone who didn't know how to cope with that pain. Whatever was happening inside of them, whether it was a sense of rejection or alienation, they didn't have the tools and abilities to accept that difficulty. They didn't have the ability inside to say, this hurts. This doesn't seem fair, but I think I can handle it, and I think I can get over it, and I believe that I can go beyond it. They don't have that ability. Sometimes it's because they have a very poor setup in their support structure, meaning that they don't have family or friends that see their suffering, acknowledge it, and help them with it, share that burden. Men in the Western culture are steered away from their sensitivities from feeling for others, from feeling for themselves, from being able to express their pain, from being able to cry openly, from being able to feel vulnerable. Society seems to allow girls to express their pain and cry, but when a male child does that, they're shunned and shamed oftentimes. I've spoken to fathers in the past who say that they don't hug their young boys when they're growing up because they're afraid that their boys will become attached, and they don't want to make their boys appear weak. So every time the young toddler will try to hug his daddy will push him back or try to reroute him towards a different behavior. And so what you see is the child is trying to bond and trying to connect for a sense of security. But when you have a male who is conditioned this way in society, where affection is something for girls, not for boys, they have a difficult time being able to hold their children and be present with their children. But when you have a setup where a young male has been brought up with a father who isn't connected his own emotional intelligence and his own sensitivities, that can be a real challenge for a young boy growing up in an environment like that. Boys, just like girls, need to be allowed to develop without judgments, without labels, without harassments. People oftentimes find it funny to point out weaknesses in children or to give them nicknames around something, and they don't realize that this can create a role that a child steps into and becomes. What can happen is that child will internalize a sense of hatred towards himself because he's internalizing those rejections as a rejection for the self. Those peer groups who come in and start rejecting him will just magnify the foundation that's been laid inside of that child of a sense of rejection. No one was there for you. Nobody wanted to hold you, make you feel special, bond with you. This can create an internal sense of rejection of oneself, and therefore when other people start rejecting you, it can be quite overwhelming because you have no place to go inside of yourself to self-soothe and to know that you're okay and you're acceptable, and no matter what happens, no matter what people say, that's not the truth. You don't have that ability. That has been removed from you because that parent removed that from you unknowingly. Therefore, you will start creating a fantasy life of how you can get out of this overwhelming experience. And it can lead to desires and fantasies of infamy. And this is where mass shooting comes in. They seek to want to be known forever because they haven't been acknowledged in the ways that they really needed to be. For them, infamy means you'll never forget me, because they've lived a whole life of being left behind. Let's take, for instance, Nicholas Cruz, the Parkland shooter. This boy was brought up in a situation where his mother was a prostitute. He had been born of fetal alcohol syndrome and addicted to crack. This boy grew up a very strange looking boy because he did not develop the way that people typically do. He had certain parts of his body that were larger than other parts of his body, and he was teased for how strange he looked. He received a lot of rejection and isolation. In the interrogation video, they brought his brother in to speak to him. And his brother broke down in tears and said,
I know I make it seem like I didn't care about you at all. I know I made it seem like when we were growing up that I hated you, I didn't like you. But truth is, I just didn't want to look like it. I didn't want to look weak. I love you with all my heart. Like, I will tell you, I'm telling you right now, I love you. I know what you did today. Other people look at me like I'm crazy for you. And I don't care what other people think. Like, you're my brother. I love you. I want you to. You can't. Why are you? Can I hug him?
You want to hug him? Yeah, why don't you?
Yes, I love you too. I know it's you, Mom. I'm sorry. That's okay. I know how you grow up. I know that people don't understand you, but I understand.
And his brother realized that what he had done had had an impact on him, because this boy had been being hated by his own brother, who was the only person he really had in his life. He lost both of his parents. He didn't know how to cope with that. He ended up homeless and sleeping on the couches of people. And here he was going to school around all these wealthy, loved children who had amazing families and lives. All the while, he was struggling. He had a job for 2 years at the Family Dollar store where he was quite an awesome employee to everyone around him. So the question remained as to what caused him to treat the people at this one environment so well and then go and kill all these other people in school. You could see that he had a sense of control because he was able to show up well where he was accepted and where people saw his value. But where he got ridiculed and shamed and treated like a weirdo and people didn't like him, this is where he started fantasizing about how to hurt other people because they were hurting him. And anytime you do that to a human being, there are going to be human beings who cannot handle that. They shouldn't have to. Let's be honest. That sense of bullying needs to stop because this is causing people a lot of pain and suffering. Feeling like something's wrong with you and knowing that you're doing the best that you can, it's not a very easy road to go down. And a lot of people end up not having coping skills and they end up creating a fantasy life. And this is what many of the mass shooters have done, where they found journals from these boys that have doodled their fantasies of annihilating people because they literally don't have the ability to cope with the inner emotional annihilation and psychological annihilation that's happening to them on a day-to-day basis. That is like the perfect storm for them, because when a person feels rejected, when people around them say, look, you're not like us, we think you're weird, we don't accept you, we're gonna hurt you for fun and we're all gonna enjoy that. If a person goes through that type of experience, then they very much could snap one day. It is very easy for a human being who doesn't have the ability to cope to determine that they will figure out a way to deal with these people once and for all. Because what they're really dealing with is not really the people, it's really the pain. It's this thing in them that says, I can't take this anymore, so I am going to make it stop once and for all. Now, even though that is completely irrational, that's what their state of being is. They are not able to handle anymore. That's why they've become obsessive about this fantasy life of destroying people and trying to harm them. It's important to understand people don't just desire infamy. It happens because there has been a devastation of a part of themselves that really needed acknowledgement. They needed to feel like they were valid and they were accepted and understood and seen. And because they don't have that inside, they desire infamy. They desire to do the most awful thing so that people will remember them forever in history. And yes, it's entirely dysfunctional. It's not something that a healthy person would desire, but at the same time, they were once healthy. They were a child born into the world that could have had all the greatest potential. No matter what damage we're born with, we can be developed and loved away from that damage to become valuable adults in society. Children expect that adults are going to protect them. And when they don't, they are left to figure out as a child how to deal with things in a final way. A person who cries because they're self-soothing and they're repairing something will have a different outcome because they will have the emotional knowledge of what they're suffering from, and then they will have their imagination to say, okay, what will make me feel better right now? And they can choose a healthy option. But a person who doesn't have that environment will create a fantasy life because they don't know what they can do, but they will fantasize about how to annihilate someone else. because inside they're feeling a sense of annihilation. Let me just help you understand what it's like to be in a position if you've never experienced it. Everywhere you go, you're being bullied and they're taunting you and embarrassing you and humiliating you. Maybe every day you hear that you're stupid. Every day you hear what a freak you are, how ugly you are, how nobody likes you. When they pass you in the hallway, people try to trip you. If you're a teacher, if you work in a school, at any capacity, and you see other students treating students this way, it's your job to intervene and to not allow anybody to be bullied or spoken to disrespectfully. It's so important that the teachers, the adults in the room, get involved in creating a practice of caring so that other children can lead this charge. But if you just turn a blind eye to it and allow for the bullying and the harassment and the embarrassment to continue, then violence will continue and it will get worse and worse. I was at an event one evening and I heard a story from a teacher who told me that he was following a school bus on his way back home after school one day. And one of the kids on the school bus, I guess, was getting rowdy and had gotten kicked off of the school bus. And the bus was going to leave him on the side of the road by himself and he was going to have to get home on his own. But this teacher stopped and said, okay, I'll pick this kid up and take him home. And I thought, oh, how relieved I was to hear that. Unfortunately, he said that he drove to the child's house and when he went to go let him out, he told the child, you owe me $20. And the child was shocked and he said, I don't have $20. And he said, you owe me $20. I don't know how you're going to get it, but you need to get it. You owe me $20. I'm not going to give you a ride for free. This costs gas money. And the child, of course, doesn't have any money and any way of earning money and had no idea how he was going to pay. So he just said, okay, and got out of the car and left. And this teacher was very proud of himself because he thought he had taught this child a lesson in some way. And I was so heartbroken because I thought, you as a man, you had an opportunity to speak to that boy in that car all by yourself about what the pain and suffering was that he was going through. Why is he acting out? What's happening in his life? But instead he chose to capitalize on this boy and make money off of him and create a hardship for this boy that he didn't have any idea how to fix. So when you see how adults are treating children in today's world, and I could give you numerous examples of this, it's horrific. What you really see is that nobody's really seeing what children are going through. They're not really seeing that when children act out, when they do bad things, they're really acting out something. They're acting out something that's either been done to them or a deprivation they're experiencing and the inability to know what right action is. But that's a time for conversation and connection and learning and understanding. But people are so focused on rewards and punishments that they're leaving kids behind because they're so busy trying to use their ego to get some sort of superior points with themselves that, oh, I showed that kid a lesson. But you didn't. All you did was actually harden that child even more and disconnect them from their ability to trust the world around them, trust the adults. So if we want a better world, it really starts with the adults here. There is a way that we can help each other out of this violence pattern. We have to have everybody who sees this isolation or this tormenting for someone to go and befriend that person, to say, hey, you know what? You don't deserve to be treated that way. Because it means so much to a human being when they understand that your pain is not something that they want, that they want to see you happy. This would mean so much to anybody who has felt rejection and isolation and aloneness. Alienation, rage, isolation, humiliation, shame, All of these things inside of a human being are a dangerous bomb waiting to go off. And that bomb is created by how we show up or don't show up in someone's lives. That bomb is created by how people create hurt in the lives of a human being who is suffering at some level and doesn't have the ability to speak it. They will find a way to communicate what their difficulty is. But if you don't understand that what you see is them expressing their pain, then it's going to get magnified way worse than it is. So what can we do differently to have a better outcome? What can we do differently to keep ourselves and our children safe? All children. We can care about one another. We can inquire. We can see all children as someone who are deserving of interest and love and development. We can understand that some children are hungry, they're in poverty, they're being sexually exploited, they're being physically abused, they're being ridiculed and shamed, they're being psychologically destroyed. We can understand what's really going on in the world of adolescence. And when we do, we'll know how to show up as more loving, interested, caring human beings. And this will change the outcome. Completely change it. Because a child who feels loved for and cared for and understood and has a great companion beside them will never want to destroy those people. There's something missing inside of a human being that goes to these extremes, and it's the love for oneself, and that has been removed because of other conditions. I would love to see a day and time when our school systems adopt empathic communication with one another. We need to have an environment where kids have some sort of setting where they can really talk about the things that are difficult to them, and they can learn how to support one another. That is the most important thing we could really be doing in our schools. If we were able to help our children have an open dialogue about the things that are hurting them and learn how to join in solidarity and not hide in shame, then that would be a huge help. The solution comes at all levels. All people in society are part of the solution. Anyone who has eyes to see the suffering of another person can make that better for them. Anyone who can see the alienation of another can help to bring them in to community and connection. It's all of our jobs to help bring people closer towards us so that we can love them and help them back to wholeness. I hope that you will try to look into the environment that's around you, look at the world around you, and begin to see the suffering of others and try to ease that burden as best as possible. Because if you do, your life will be enriched in so many ways that are so fulfilling, and you will show a beautiful example to others of how to live a better life. If you'd like to hear more about an empathic view, please like, subscribe, and sign up for notifications to my channel. I look forward to seeing you soon. Be well.